Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that. If you're returning, how you doing? I'm going to give you guys an update of the lawsuit between my husband and I and my parents. I hate even talking about this, but I wanted to let you guys know because I feel that you guys are just as committed as me and Sean are. I feel bad because I kind of like roped you guys in, but it's because I feel like I can talk to you guys about anything, and it's like a no judgment zone here. We were given like a questionnaire, I guess you could say, from my parents' lawyer, and we had to admit, deny, or object to 27 questions on this part, 27 questions on this part, 27 questions on this part. And I said, okay. So you had to deny, if you had, and it was very strange at first. And I had to do a lot of research on how to even answer these questions because I'm not a lawyer, you know what I mean? And I'm like, do you even answer these questions? You know what I mean? So I did my research and I called my lawyer and I'm like, how do you do this? And she's like, deny if you have evidence to prove, admit if you have no evidence to prove, and object if you cannot answer the question because it's like you don't know what they're thinking type thing. Like you're not in their brain. You can't admit or deny to what they're... And I said, okay, that makes sense. So out of the questions that we had to deny because we had evidence, out of the 27 questions that we had to deny, okay, we were able to admit or deny and have evidence of 17 questions. Okay, we were able to only admit to 3 questions. Okay, because we didn't have evidence to 3 questions, and we were able to object to 7 questions because we don't know what my parents were thinking when they did what they did, that type of thing. So when it comes to the having like evidence, their lawyer wanted to know how we knew that they did what they did type thing. So we were able to dig up the original deed of the land that our house sits on, of the person that they bought this land from. So we were able to dig that up for the amount of money that they paid originally for it, which was $7,500. And then we have the deed of the land from when they gave it to us. And then we have a picture of, it's me, my son Andrew, because Andrew was 6 years old. Yeah. Well, 5 years old. Yeah, because it was December of 2003. So he was 5 years old because he didn't turn 6 until April. Right. So he was 5 years old. And then it was me, Andrew, my dad, and my sister Janine. And it's a picture of all of us standing on the land before the house was built. And my parents actually had a sign made up and it said future home of me and Sean. And I'm like, Hilaire, if that's not proof, I don't know what is. So, and then they wanted documentation of when, because they said that they want proof that my parents took out a construction loan, because Sean and I were not able to get a construction loan because construction loans are harder to obtain than just a regular mortgage loan. So my parents took out a construction loan in their name. And then a year later, we took out a mortgage loan and paid off their construction loan with our mortgage loan. Please stay with me because this is, I know it's, confusing at first, but I'm explaining everything in detail. And we were able to prove that with documentation from Wells Fargo. And then their lawyer wanted proof of which bank my parents got their construction loan through. So we were able to get proof of that. And then they wanted proof of our mortgage payments. So we were able to get all of that as well. And then they wanted proof that we were actually the ones that have been making the mortgage payments. So we were able to do that and also show how much money is left on our mortgage, which is $44,000. And then they wanted proof, because this guy wants proof that we have been the ones, me and Sean have been the ones that have been making payments and doing everything, and that my parents have, because my parents have been claiming that they're the ones that have been making the mortgage payments for over 20 years, and my parents have been the ones that have been making claims that they're the ones that have been paying for all the upgrades and this, that, and the other. Well, guess what? Your girl, Autumn, she's that bitch, okay? She is that bitch that keeps receipts for 20 plus years, okay? So I actually have every tax record, every homeowner insurance record for literally the past 20 something years. I even have every permit that was pulled for every upgrade that we've ever done in this house. For the roof, for the new garage door, for every remodeling project that we've ever done, for the new air conditioning unit that we had put in by Home Depot, for the fence. We're having, like I said, the front door replaced. The contractors will be here by end of this week to take measurements. They have to pull permit for that, so I'll have that permit as well. And these permits are dating back to 2014 because that's when we started, doing things like that's when the fence was put up. Okay. They wanted, this guy wants just ridiculous amounts of documentation. But I'm that person who literally keeps everything. I have, if you guys were to see inside of my closet, I have boxes and boxes. They're decorative. Oh, they're so pretty. But I have boxes and boxes and boxes, literally just full of documents because I'm that person. I literally save everything. Okay? I don't know why I started doing it. I just did. And then they wanted proof of because I don't know if you remember that I had said that my parents took it upon themselves to list our home for sale on Craigslist for $60,000. And my parents denied this. Oh, nay. So I actually have proof of that because we had to contact Craigslist and say, listen, someone put my house up for sale. This guy goes by this name because he used his nickname. And my father actually put his home phone number up on there. And these people would call him, and then they would give them my cell phone number. And when I was answering these phone calls, I said, can you do me a favor? I said, can you send me a screenshot of where you're finding this information? And that's what they were doing. So I have so many screenshots and emails from these people. It's absurd. So it just goes to back up every claim that I have. And then my parents were sending literal letters that were written out to all of Sean's family members, threatening them. He even sent a letter to my husband's boss from Homeland Security. I have all that too. So then they wanted proof that I'm still receiving phone calls of people trying to buy my home. I receive at least 3 to 4 phone calls a day of people asking to buy my home that's for sale online. My house is not for sale. I've actually had people show up at my house wanting a tour of the house that's for sale online. My house is not for sale. So you could see how frustrating all of this is. So as for, because we also had to give explanations, if you will, okay? And when I have to give an explanation, like written down, that type of thing, I'm not going to speak in layman's terms, I guess you could say. Because this guy, their lawyer, he tries to act as if he is this big, powerful, I'm going to get you type guy. So the one question was this, can you provide documentation that the land was purchased in the amount of $7,500? Da, 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 da. Yeah. And then it says, I'm sorry, no, wait, that's the wrong one. The question was, thereafter, February 2004, counter defendants obtained a construction mortgage in the amount of was that it? $67,808 so we could build the house. So my answer to that was object. It says on the grounds that it's vague and ambiguous as the term continued agreement, because it says, wait, was that it? Hang on, I'm sorry. Some of this gets so confusing. Okay, I'm sorry. It's the continued agreement between the parties was that the counter defendant's construction loan would be paid off with our Wells Fargo mortgage, and the counter defendants therefore would have no interest in the land or the home. So my objection, okay, because I don't know what they were thinking, okay, because how would I? I'm not in their brains. I said object on the grounds that it is vague and ambiguous as the term continued agreement lacks specificity regarding its details, timing, or documentation, making it impossible to respond accurately. Additionally, the request assumes disputed facts, including the existence of an agreement and its specific terms, such as the counter-defendant's construction loan being paid off with the Wells Fargo mortgage and the counter-defendants having no interest in the land or home, which are contested issues in this case. And then the next one that I objected to says that we were, meaning me and Sean, we were never able to build on land that we had because there were sinkholes. We had land, and then we sold the land because there were sinkholes. Okay, and for some reason my parents brought this up. Whatever. And it says that I object on the grounds that it assumes disputed facts, specifically that the 3 lots were not suitable for building, which is not the case due to the presence of sinkholes and the prohibitive cost of remediation upwards of $100,000. Additionally, the request is misleading as it implies that that me and Sean had the practical ability to build, which is contradicted by their continued residence in their current home, indicating no new home was built on the lots unless the lots were fixed first. Yeah. It's like, because we're not willing to give up this house, my parents are like, well, why didn't you go build your house, a new house, on the land that you had? Well, it's because we couldn't, because a sinkhole had opened up and we had to get rid of it. Yeah, they are like pushing for this house for some reason. And then this one says that the counter defendants have used their alleged interest in mine and Sean's land, which directly interferes with our interest and agreements between the parties. So this one was a little confusing to answer, but this is how I answered it. Object. On the grounds that it is vague and ambiguous, as the terms alleged interest directly interferes and agreements between the parties are not clearly defined, making it impossible to respond accurately. Additionally, the request is compound as it combines multiple distinct issues into a single question, further complicating a clear response. And the next one states that counter defendants are and have wrongfully interfered with our ownership. And this is how I answered. Object. On the grounds that it is vague and ambiguous, on the phrase wrongfully interfered is not clearly defined and lacks specificity regarding the alleged actions or events, making it impossible to respond accurately. Additionally, the request is overly broad, as it fails to provide a time frame or specific instances or interference, rendering it reasonably expansive. Okay, so now as for this one, it says in 2005 we obtained our own mortgage for our home through Wells Fargo. And wait, is that the right one? No. God. No, I'm sorry. While our home was being built, we paid the counter defendants $800 a month for 12 months for payments on the construction loan originally placed in the counter defendant's name, and then we applied for our own mortgage, which is true. But see, the one thing that my parents never did was they never gave us receipts saying, okay, you gave us this much money this month, this much money this month, this much money that much. Why would we do that? You know, it's my parents. We're supposed to be able to trust them. Nay, how the hell did we know that 20 plus years later they would come back and do some bullshit like this? So I said, admit that while the home was being built, we paid the counter defendants $800 a month for 12 months for payments on the construction loan mortgage originally placed in the counter defendant's name, and then we applied for our own mortgage. We clarify that these payments were made as part of an agreement to eventually pay off the construction loan with their Wells Fargo mortgage, which they subsequently obtained and used to satisfy the construction loan. And now we're going to discuss the unjust enrichment, which is a obligation imposed by law to do justice, even if it's clear that no promise was ever made or intended. Okay, so this is my answer to the unjust enrichment. For over 20 years, we've maintained our property, paying property taxes, homeowners insurance through Wells Fargo escrow account, and funding upgrades to our home as shown by the permits that we've gathered. These actions increase the property's value, which my parents are now trying to claim a share of. They've seen us live and maintain the home for over 20 years, covering all expenses like taxes, insurance, and upgrades, while treating it as our own based on their 2003 gift promise, which was the land. Their failure to remove their names from the deed, despite the $600 redeeding credit to the seller's transaction summary, indicates they knowingly retained a legal interest while we bore all the cost. It's unfair for my parents to retain these benefits without compensating us or correcting the situation. They've benefited financially by having their $67,808 construction loan paid off, a debt they would have otherwise been responsible for. They're now claiming ownership of a property worth over $240,000, which has appreciated in value due to their 20 plus years of maintenance, taxes, insurance, and upgrades, investments they did not contribute to after the initial gift. Their actions, like listing our home on Craigslist for $60,000, filing a list pendens, and causing scammers and visitors to disrupt our life, show they're trying to capitalize on our efforts while denying our rightful ownership. This has forced us into a costly legal battle, requiring us to gather extensive evidence, adding to our financial and emotional burden. If they're allowed to keep their legal interest in the property without compensating us for a loan payoff, maintenance, and upgrades, they'll be unjustly enriched at our expense, especially since the land was promised as a gift in 2003. My parents have been unjustly enriched by benefiting from our payment of the construction loan, our 20 plus years of property maintenance, and the resulting increase in the property's value, while retaining a legal interest by not removing their names from the deed. This is unfair, as it allows them to profit from our efforts without compensation, especially after their promise to gift the land. We assert that the counter-defendants have been unjustly enriched by retaining legal interest in the property gifted to us in 2003, as evidenced by the warranty deeds in the future home of Sean and Autumn Sign, while benefiting from our significant financial contributions. We paid off the counter-defendant's construction loan as shown in the records of $67,385.03 after making 800 monthly payments for 12 months during construction, relieving the counter-defendants of substantial debt. For over 20 plus years, we have maintained the property, covering property taxes and insurance via Wells Fargo escrow and funding upgrades evidenced by permits, contributing to its current $240,000 value. The counter-defendants were aware of these benefits, as demonstrated by their 2024 inquiry about lots that we sold in 2019, yet failed to remove their names from the deed, despite $600 redeeding credit in the seller transaction summary, by now claiming ownership and listing our home on Craigslist for $60,000. The counter-defendants seek to profit from our efforts, forcing us into a costly legal battle and causing disruption through daily scammer calls, uninvited visitors due to the listing and list pendants. It would be unjust to allow the counter-defendants to retain these benefits without compensating us for their contributions and the resulting harm. Now let's talk about the harassment that Sean and I have been through because of my parents. We assert that the counter-defendants have engaged in harassment through deliberate and severe pattern of intimidation, causing significant emotional and financial distress. This includes stalking and cyberstalking, such as monitoring our activities or sending harassing online messages, leaving threatening voicemails with profanity, sending letters to Sean's family and workplace and pressure and humiliate him. These actions compound their unfounded home ownership claims, such as their inquiry about lots that we sold in 2019, despite our clear ownership. I just lost my place. Which is evidenced by warranty deeds. The counter-defendants' failure to remove their names from the deed after the construction loan was paid off has shown that the payoff record and the maintained of property of over 20 years, covering taxes, insurance, and upgrades, have forced us into a costly legal battle, further exacerbating the distress caused by the counter-defendants' harassing behavior. The property deed fraud. My parents committed property deed fraud by misrepresenting their ownership through the Craigslist listing and filing list pendants based on a false claim to the property. They knew the land was gifted to me and Sean in 2003, and that we paid off their loan and maintained the property, yet they took actions to interfere with our home title, leading to significant disruption from scammers and visitors. The counter-defendants committed property deed fraud by falsely representing ownership of the property gifted to us in 2003. The counter defendants listed our home on Craigslist for $60,000 without consent, filed a list pendants on the property, despite the fact that we paid off their construction loan as shown on record, maintaining the property for over 20 years. The counter defendants' failure to remove their names from the deed after their redeeding enabled these fraudulent actions. As a result, we have faced daily calls from scammers for nearly a year, uninvited visitors seeking tours of our home they believe was for sale, causing significant disruption and financial harm. Now, we're going to talk about something called Promissory estoppel. My parents promised to gift us the land in 2003 to build our home. This is supported by the warranty deeds, the sign that was made, the verbal agreement that they'd take out a construction loan to help us build, which we later paid off with our own mortgage. We relied on this promise by taking significant actions. We built our home on the land, my parents securing the construction loan because we could not get one ourselves. We paid them $800 a month for 12 months during the loan for the construction, which totaled $9,600. We then obtained a Wells Fargo mortgage and paid off the remaining construction loan. For over 20 years, we maintained the property, paying property taxes via Wells Fargo escrow and making upgrades evidenced by the permits. These actions have shown we've acted as true owners, believing the land was fully ours based on their promise. My parents did not fully keep their promise because they never removed their names from the deed despite the redeeding. This caused us harm. They now claim ownership, forcing us into a costly legal battle. Their actions, like listing our home on Craigslist, filing a list pendants, and have led scammers to calling us daily for nearly a year, and people showing up for tours disrupting our lives. We have suffered emotionally, and we've expressed feeling stressed and overwhelmed by this lawsuit. Financially, we would not have invested in the property if we knew that they'd later claim ownership. It would be unfair to let my parents go back on their promise now. We spent over 20 years building our life on this land, treating it as our own based on their gift. Letting them claim ownership after all of our investments, financially and emotionally, would be unjust, especially since their failure to update the deed has enabled their current claims. My parents promised to gift us the land in 2003. We relied on that promise by building a home and taking on significant financial responsibilities, and their failure to fully transfer the deed has caused us harm through this legal dispute and related harassment. It would be unjust to allow them to deny the gift now. We assert promissory estoppel as the counter defendants promised to give the land for us to build our home, as evidenced that we've shown we reasonably relied on this promise by building a home. For over 20 years, we've maintained the property. However, the counter defendants failed to remove their names from the deed because they had a redeeding done that we didn't know about. Yeah. This has caused us detriment through a costly legal battle. It would be unjust to allow the counter defendants to deny their promise after our significant reliance and resulting harm. Now let's talk about the ad deception. My dad listed our home on Craigslist for $60,000, significantly undervaluing it compared to the actual worth of $240,000. This listing falsely represented that the home was for sale and that he had the authority to sell it despite the land being gifted in 2003. We've paid off my parents' construction loan and maintained the property for over 20 years, establishing our home ownership. My dad knew that the property was not his to sell, and listing it at $60,000, far below the $240,000 value, suggests an intent to either quickly offload it to an unsuspecting buyer or to provoke us by devaluing our asset, knowing it would cause disruption. While we didn't rely on the listing because we knew it was false, third parties did, leading to damages. The listing combined with the list pendants, resulting in daily scammer calls for nearly a year and people showing up at our home expecting tours. This caused us emotional distress, disrupting our privacy and potentially devaluing our property in the eyes of potential future buyers due to the public confusion. My dad's Craigslist listing constitutes fraudulent misrepresentation by falsely advertising our home for sale at $60,000, far below the $240,000 value. Despite lacking authority to sell it, he knew the property was gifted to us and that we've maintained sole financial responsibility for over 20 years. Yet he made the false statement, leading to significant disruption and harm through scammers and visitors. We assert that the counter defendants engaged in fraudulent misrepresentation by listing our home for sale on Craigslist for $60,000, despite its actual value of $240,000, falsely representing their authority to sell the property gifted to us in 2003 as evidenced by warranty deeds and the sign made. The counter defendants knew they lacked home ownership rights and we paid off their construction loan. This false listing, combined with the counter defendants filing of list pendants, led third parties to rely on the misrepresentation, resulting in daily scammer calls for nearly a year and uninvited visitors. So that is everything that I have so far. When I hear back from my lawyer, I will let you guys know. Okay. I don't know what's next. I don't know if we're going to mediation. I don't know if we're going to trial. I don't even know. We were supposed to go to mediation, but apparently mediation is getting skipped and we're going to trial. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. This is so frustrating. I'm so stressed out. I can't focus on anything else anymore. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, everything that Sean and I do, like getting prepared for hurricane season, having a new front door installed, I'm like, you know what, should we even do it? You know what I mean? And Sean's like, well, we need to do it. And I'm like, okay. And he's just like, he's like, but not only that, he's like, it just shows more freaking proof. And I'm like, I understand that, but it's like, I just want to pull my hair out, and I'm like, I can't take this shit anymore. I really can't. I don't know. I just don't know. But you know what? I thank you guys so much. I really do, for standing by me. And you guys are like one big rock that has literally just kept me standing up straight, And I'm so grateful for you guys. I really, truly am. If we come out on the right side of this, a celebration is in order. No kidding. All right, y'all. I'm out of here. Okay, I will see you in the next one. Okay, you stay safe, you stay positive, you keep prepping. And as always, fear less, God bless, and whatever you do, don't ever do this to your children.